News with Jess Lujan.
There.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Jess Lujan. Welcome to this edition of The Buzz. Very interesting show tonight, and I'm very excited to have Phil Flores here. Actually, we're not talking Republican or Democrat. This is not an election evening.
This is Grandpa.
There we go. That's right. He's of course, the grandson of former Governor Joseph Flores, and of course, the executive director, producer of what we're talking about, this DVD, Arlene Steffi. This DVD is called actually The Life and Times of Governor Joseph Flores, Ilinatla Imagalahi. Good evening, Arlene.
Good evening.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. Very excited. Thank you very much. I had an opportunity to view this.
Very good.
I was glued 90 minutes. Needed to eat, needed to use the bathroom, but I couldn't take TV with me. I know I could have paused it, but I didn't. It was great. It reminded me of because I personally knew your grandmother and grandfather, so it brought back memories. The genesis of this biography. Phil.
Arlene's heard this story a million times now, but I'm playing golf with Simon. It's a Guam Bar Association tournament. And at their tournaments, they have stations. They had a hot dog station. So I went there and just started chatting with the three young students. Hey, where do you go to school? One of them went to Sanchez FD Academy. So I asked, because I'm playing with Simon, I asked the lady, the Sanchez girl, says, well, tell me something about Simon Sanchez. Who was he? She goes, I don't know. So Party, come over here and talk to this girl. Tell her about your grandfather. Then I said to her, because now grandfather is on my mind, I said, who was their first local governor? I don't know. So it just said to me how much we need to teach people, remind people. We talk so much about our culture and our heritage. Just remind them.
And how important it is that we don't know, right?
Yeah. And so I said, okay, let's do a project. And President Underwood at the university and the endowment fund tried to do something. And part of their fundraiser, I said, okay, I'll pay something. And if we can do something to my grandfather, and then we made a couple stabs at it, it wasn't working. So then I thought, let's just talk to people who knew him. And let's do a video, because people, they want to watch more than they want to read. And next thing you know, my friend Arlene's in my office going, okay, we're on, let's go.
Well, there you go. And again, what did you say that excited Arlene to be able to do something like this? Because I tell you, it's not very easy to get Arlene to be excited to cover a story or to work on a project. I mean, she has to be totally convinced.
The skeleton better have flesh on it. That's for sure.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to drop what I'm doing unless I really think it's worth the time.
Yeah.
And I personally knew nothing about Joseph Flores. I mean, I know the governors because I study that, right? But with respect to the personality, absolutely nothing. And I didn't realize that there wasn't very much about him until I started talking to people and realizing just how private this individual was. And he probably was private to a fault, because as public as he really wasn't public. The only thing that made that man public was that he agreed to be a governor for a year and a half.
Sure.
And that threw him right into the public light. But other than that, I think he was just a businessman. He was a simple man with personal goals, and that's what I respected the most after doing the research. I really can identify with that because I'm a restless person when it comes to learning. I love to learn. I'm constantly reading. I want to push the envelope constantly. It's like, how can I improve myself? I don't care about changing everyone else. It's me. How can I do that? And I found that in Joseph Flores. I thought, wow, I really would have loved to have sat down and talked to him. How did he set those goals? Why those goals?
Sure.
And so it was for me a real thrill.
Now, when we talked, when I had you on radio, it was last week. Most people that put a documentary together, or even commercials, movies together, there are storyboards basically you work with, and you can start here, and then you can. The last shot could be the very beginning of the shot. You didn't have a storyboard. You didn't have a preconceived idea on what road you were going, and and I'm sure because you said you didn't know a lot or very little, or you knew very little about the former governor. How much insight did he give you? Enough to go by? Phil give you enough?
Philip provided a wonderful storyline from a grandson's perspective. Very personal.
Sure.
I've known Phil through my husband Bob since the 80s, and maybe a little bit before that, when I used to handle the advertising for Guam Savings at K57 and KOAM. So I knew Phil, but I didn't know him as intimately. I feel like I really understand him better now, but there are there complications, or not complications, there are complexities that, you know, that make people make decisions with. But Governor Flores, after I interviewed Phil, and then I interviewed Ken Ariola, and then I interviewed Kurt Moylan, I got one perspective from those, and Frank Flores Blas. I got that. There was one perspective there, but the human side of him came out in Ama Aflagui and Ama Underwood, and Phil and Lynn. Lynn, to me, was, I mean, that was a little girl waiting, still in love with her grandfather. You know, I loved it when she talked about the moment that she could hear the shells. He wanted them to listen to the shell. Can you hear the ocean in Guam?
Yeah, whenever we would visit, and then sometimes even my grandfather, my grandparents would send us, that's when you could send coconuts through the mail. So we put Jess Lujan, street such and such.
You didn't have to husk it.
That's right.
Yeah, we just mail it, and people would, you know, we do that when we were out here for the summers. And we go back to San Francisco, and there'd be people there with their coconut that we sent them. They weren't there going to eat it. They just liked it.
They liked it. Of course, Now, I you know, the debut is going to be tomorrow, so I was able to see it. I'm not going to try.
You're the only one, by the way.
Really? Well,
yes,
hey,
I did not give it to anybody else.
But let me ask you this, Phil. You're the only grandson, right?
I'm the only son.
Only son. Yeah, there we go. Now, you know, most families grow up with prominent figures, of course. You know, it's well known basically that your father would take over this business, and then you would take over and like that. From what I gather, really, these were not your intentions when you were growing up in San Francisco.
No, I thought I was going to be veterinarian. I was going to marry Jody Hieronymus, my high school sweetheart. She was going to be my clerk or assistant, whatever. Well, I snapped out of that. But
literally.
My father had his work, his businesses in San Francisco, so he really had no intention. He never lived out here. He was born in the city, stayed there his whole life. So it was kind of, I went around that loop to here, and I'm not sure if it's in the video, but we were talking about it. When my grandfather heard I wanted to be a
veterinarian,
he goes, he's going to be a horse doctor? No, he's going to run the family businesses.
I tell you what, we'll talk more about this when we come back from a break. Got to pay some bills right now. Be right back.